Hey everybody, it's Never, and I wanted to show you some UI stuff today. So, the main part of my UI that makes it all work is Pitbull, and that's a unit frame add-on. You can get it from Curse. It's really easy if you use the Curse client, but do it however you want. So once you've got it installed and enabled, and I recommend at first enabling all of the modules, and then if you find there's some that you don't ever use, you can disable them. Like the shaman totem thing if you never play a shaman or something, but it's lightweight enough you don't have to worry about leaving it all unless your computer's garbage. So /PB4 opens up Pitbull 4. And a couple of things that you want to know about is that it does have a configuration mode, so you can see what it will look like if you're in these different setups. So you don't have to actually go to a 40-man battleground just to see what your stuff looks like in order to configure it and waste your time. So I'm going to go ahead and just put it on 10-man for now, so what it looks like rating, because this shows pretty much everything I care about. The next thing to understand is the difference between layouts and units, and units and groups are kind of the same thing. A layout is all of the stuff that is applied to a unit frame, so the arrangement of its health bar versus its mana bar, or any other indicators that are part of it. The unit is specifically where the unit is, how big it is. You can adjust all this stuff right here. Now, the layout contains a lot of those same things, width and height and scale and so forth, but when you apply it on the unit, it only applies it to that unit and it doesn't change that original layout. So once you see, like, I've got my player, but I've also got target, and I've got different layouts for them, and for the most part I have several different layouts, but once you get into groups, you'll see that my group, this uses the party layout, and so does the raid, and so does a 25-man raid, and so on. They all use the same layout, but you'll see that these are a certain width, but once you get into 40-man, actually they're the same width, but you could adjust this so that they're smaller in a 40-man if you need to fit them into a different space. So having the layout decide where all the stuff is inside the box, and then the group or unit adjustments determine the shape and arrangement of that actual box. I hope that clears up some confusion, because it can get really confusing if you don't know that stuff. The other thing is, and this is a very common thing among most add-ons, is the profile system, which is a little confusing. What you'll do is, if you've got an existing profile, and it'll make one by default, you can just switch to it by going here and going to the drop-down menu. If you do copy from and choose another one, it will overwrite the contents of your current profile with whatever you choose from this list. Deleting it obviously deletes whatever you choose from that list. The challenge for this is, if you accidentally go to copy from and then do something else, you have just overwritten that, and I never use this function at all. If I want to copy a profile, then I choose it with existing profiles and then go to new, and it will give you a copy that way. Or you can make a new one and then go to copy from, because it will copy the settings from that. But it's easy to make a mistake with that and lose all your progress. Another cool trick that you can do is that WoW doesn't save changes to the interface and to add-on files until it is closed successfully. So if you open up all your stuff and you want to make a bunch of changes, once you are ready to commit those changes, make sure you reload your UI, or you at least log off and log back on. Ideally, you just exit the whole game and go back in, because it won't save the changes otherwise. But there's an advantage to doing it this way. If you make a bunch of changes and you decide you just really don't like it, then all you need to do is open up Task Manager, find wow.exe, and end the process, and it will kill WoW without properly exiting, which will not write the changes to the disk. So that's Pitbull, and you can pick and choose a lot of stuff with it. It gets very detailed. One of the things I do, for example, is there's faders, and so I've got an opacity that I can adjust, and I can adjust whether or not it shows up in combat or whatever. This is focus target, so it's always there, but if I go to like my player setup, then it fades for combat and it's got an opacity setting. That's how you do all of that. So all this stuff is in here, you just need to look around and figure out what it is. Aura is buffs and debuffs. The tooltips really help out with this. But understanding the difference between a layout and a unit or a group is the secret to Pitbull, and once you've got that, it's pretty easy to get stuff going. The next thing I want to talk about is Bartender, and that is Bartender 4, conveniently it's the same number as Pitbull 4, but they're not related, /BT4 will bring up the config for that. So I'm going to show you where all my buttons are by unlocking. You'll see that bar number 1 is right down here, and bar number 5 is there. If you remember from another video I made, I explained that those correspond to the keys on my speed pad. You'll also see here's a bunch of other things right here. These are bars that are paged to when I do my paging. Stance bar is up here because I hide it and never need to use it. In fact, I could put it over here because it doesn't matter. Extra action bar shows up right there, but you can also move that to a more convenient place if you want to, and I think actually maybe right down here would be better, so look for that next time I do something with that in a video. Pet bar is here, and you can set a lot of similar things to this. Like, for example, I have got the pet bar to fade out to 0 unless you mouse over it, and I don't have a pet so I can show you this, but that's essentially how that works, and you can set that for any bar you want. These bars are obviously set to be completely invisible because I never need to see those things. Always hide. So the way that I have this working for paging, which is what someone has asked about, is bar 1 is the main bar. And what I do is I have Shift, Control, and Alt page this bar to other bars. So under state configuration, we can choose the default stance for the bar as page 1. If I go to bear form or cat form, it goes to page 9, which has my bear form and cat form stuff on it. And I don't know where did page 9 go. No, I don't see it. But anyway, it may not actually be visible somewhere. Who cares? That's what page 9 is, and you can see it when it shows up. Oh, page 9 is back here behind this. We'll just put page 9 up there where it belongs, even though you never see it because it's hidden. So then also my modifiers go to page 2, 3, and 4 respectively, and you can see that happening as I push Control and Alt. And then I've never used custom conditionals for this, but they can do some pretty amazing things from what I've read. And positioning, you can precisely tune all of these and get them exactly how you want. Same thing for visibility. You get the idea. And so down here is bar number 5. And same thing. Those stay the same, so they don't page with forms, but they do page with this 7, 8, or 6, 7, and 8 page the bottom bar. So between these, this bar down here has got 9 buttons. This one has got 10 buttons, and so I've got 19 buttons times 4 because you've got the default plus 3 pages for each. So that adds up pretty nice and fast, and you end up with like almost 80 different buttons that you can press, which is kind of awesome. So lots of things, and then you never need to pick your hand up or change anything to see where all those are. So that's how you use Bartender. Button lock, I keep that on so I don't accidentally drag a button off of things. And then it can configure things like your vehicle bar and all of that stuff, but I don't use some of the default things. Vehicle bar, I actually just have it set to, oh, where is that? There's somewhere where you change it so that it just handles it's just the default one, and it just puts your vehicle stuff on there. But I can't remember where that is. It's probably somewhere right staring me in the face and I can't see it. Yeah, something like that. Anyway, so that's Bartender, and that's how I do my paging. The extra benefit to doing paging like this is you never have to use Control, Alt, or Shift modifiers in your macros, because all you need to do, if you wanted, like this key right here is Wrath. Well, it's Wrath if I have a target that's hostile, or if I'm in my restoration spec, it is Regrowth if I have got a or no, it's Life Bloom. I'll remember one of these days. But I just hit Shift and it switches to Fairy Fire, and that's just a entire separate macro or button that's right there. So I don't need to take and make really long, complicated macros, because I do that enough anyway. This way I don't run out of room by trying to have a macro do different things with modifiers. Control turns it over to something that'll mark for skull, and Alt changes it over to a picture of Pepe, which uses whatever quest item that I have available in a pretty sweet macro. So that's bartender. The next sort of big one, and actually you might have seen in there one fun little extracurricular use of bartender, is if I unlock this, you'll see that there is actually a bar right here. And what that is doing is that is putting the nice faded glow around my mini-map, because it doesn't come with, it comes with a hard edge, not a soft edge, and so I added that by using an empty bartender button behind the mini-map, and you can adjust the strata of those things. So that brings me to my mini-map, which is another very important mod that I use, which is Chinchilla. So Chinchilla does a ton of stuff. It can do one rounded corner and the rest of them straight corners, so it can go up in the corner all nice. It gives me adjustments, so you can go to let's see, that's moving that, but then there's a position thing, and so you can move your boss frames, or you can move the capture bar for capture the flag, your durability guy, anything you want really. That's how I got my quest tracker over there. And even the Blizzard ticket status, so it lets you do everything quite nicely. Vehicle seats, let's put that a little farther. So it has a lot of other things that are really useful, like the buttons around here, and you can set them so that they show up on mouse over, like garrison, clock, world map, and calendar. You'll see that those show up when I hover over the mini-map, but then they go away so that I don't have to look at a bunch of ugly buttons all the time. Chinchilla is wonderful, and it is very configurable and covers what you would need a lot of other small add-ons to take care of. So that's why I really love Chinchilla. For chat, I use Pratt, which allows me to do very minimal things, gives me timestamps, and I know you don't normally see this because I put my little picture there, because for some reason people have this preoccupation with protecting anonymity from, you know, characters that are anonymous to the user. But anyway, that's what I use for chat, is Pratt, and I don't use the high CPU add-ons because I've never really wanted to use any of them. For tooltips, I use something called TipTac, which lets me position a tooltip anchored at the bottom right corner so it will never cross down over there into where my raid frames go if I'm in a larger raid. So that's quite handy there. A lot of the other stuff is really things that I never think about very much, but the next big player is aura frames. Now, I used to use Citrina buff frame, but it just doesn't have the same upkeep right now that aura frames does, and so I switched to using that. And that is accessed by AF. You access Chinchilla, by the way, I forgot to say, by just right-clicking the mini-map somewhere. So aura frames is a little more complicated, but I'll show you what I do with it. So I've got where's the thing that shows? There we go. So I've got these containers right here that are set to go this way. They obviously grow away from the center, which is how I have them set up. And I have a custom list of things that can exist on each one, with the exception of the player buffs and the player debuffs. That list allows everything that could fall into that category. But this one here and this one here are ones that are special lists, and the stuns one obviously is any stuns that I can apply. But I specifically configure what those are. So for this one, for example, I've got a filter on it with a list of named spells. And this is just all of the important debuffs or dots that I can put onto a target that I want to track. Sometimes I put stuff like Life Bloom or Rejuvenation in here because I want to track the heals that I put on targets that I'm healing. And so I have that show there, and it's also going to show me beneficial stuff over here if I want to see it. And you can say if it was cast by you or whatever. So it's everything that Citrina can do, but in a little easier to handle layout, in my opinion, and it's updated more frequently. So this one is really good, and that is how I track my debuffs and buffs when I'm tanking or healing. And it's really handy. In fact, sometimes you can even go in and say if there's a boss ability you really want to track, you can have it show up right here. Another thing that I do with Pitbull that might be useful for some folks is when I'm raiding, I've got my focus right here, and if I set the focus to myself, you'll see that it shows me, but it also shows my focus as target, which happens to be me. But if I were to target something else like that guy right there, whoever he is, then it shows that I'm targeting him, and it highlights it if that is the same as my target. So if I set this to my focus, he's not targeting anything, of course, which is not going to help with that. But it shows that if it's highlighted, I know I'm targeting the same thing as my focus. And I set my focus to the other tank if I'm tanking, or to just the main tank if I'm not tanking, so I can always see what the tank is fighting. And I can just tab target, and then when it highlights, I know I'm on the same target as the tank. It makes that part of it really, really simple. There's better ways to do it with assists and whatnot, but that's how I choose to do it. And it's a pretty easy way to tell. Like in PvP, if I'm doing 2s for points, I'll set my focus to my partner so I can tell which guy they're targeted at all times. Gladius tells me the same thing, but that's a way that I'm accustomed looking at it. So the next thing is weak auras, which is /WA, and that is how I show all of this crazy stuff here. Like this little purple guy down here shows that I don't have Mark of the Wild on. I do, but I'm showing all of the things. These red guys over here show up when I'm at low health. These things all indicate different procs that happen. This skull thing is if I get a killing blow. Here's my combo points. This shows up behind stealth because it looks really cool. You might have seen some of that come up. So that's the stuff that I do to show cool looking things that also do a bit of an indication. Like if I go into flight form, I get like these little wing looking things off of here. If I go into bear form, I get like this savage looking claw stuff. Or cat form, I don't think I have one for cat form. But if I go into stealth, you'll see that there's a little aura that shows up behind the stealth indicator I have right here to remind me that I'm in stealth. I'm going to need to make the bear one bigger, because thanks to the changes to this sort of stuff, I mean, I can be in bear form and have no idea, except for that my bars have changed. But then I don't know if it's bear form or cat form right off, because this is way down here. So I got to figure out a better way to do that. But that is weak auras, and it's pretty wonderful. There's a lot of other little mods that I use that are not so obvious. I use Bagnon for my inventory, and that includes stuff like my bank as well. I have it on void storage and all that. Bagnon is really handy, especially with its search function or telling you where things are. Like I can see that on my rogue I've got 20 of these. It's really handy to have those counts like that, so I recommend Bagnon. Up here I use Titan Panel with the broker plugins for different things like durability, and this is kind of handy to see this stuff. Some location info, layout of my gold, so you can see all my alts that I actually keep some gold on. There's a lot of things there. And then here's XP info for whenever I happen to be leveling something. And then here's some total RP icons that are easy to find there. That's how I keep that going there. Down here is where I keep, what is it called? SCADA for tracking damage and other meters. I like SCADA just because it's lighter weight. Recount is actually better if you're going for features, but SCADA is just so easy to use with the way that you interact with it with left and right clicks to go through all the menus that I really enjoy how simple it is. Let's see, other add-ons that I use. I've got Ask Mr. Robot on there because sometimes I don't want to do the math to figure out the weights on different stats versus item level increases, so I make that easier. Let's see, Auctionator. This just expands Bagnon to show some other stuff from other characters, which is really handy. BG Spy is how people can tell what spec people have when that starts. Candy Buckets is really handy, then it helps you for Lunar Festival and all that stuff. I've talked about that before. Close Up is pretty neat. What it does is, let's see, I got a link an item to show what it does, so I'll link it in say PvP gloves. So if I click on these to see them, Close Up allows me to zoom in on things and move them around and turn them, and I can reset it if I add more, like if I want to add some more items to it. Oh, that's Mogget, but I can add a bunch of stuff to the appearance over here, or I can reset it, or I can change it and just equip one thing, or I can even find a player target and I can see the target that I'm looking at and mess around with them right there. And that's what close-up does, and it's quite powerful for such a little add-on. Diminishing returns just shows a diminishing return indicator next to the target you're on, so you can see which crowd control effects are under diminishing returns and how long they have left. Error filter gets rid of annoying UI errors, the red things that go across the screen like you can't use that yet or whatever. Fonter is how I change my fonts. I use the Antigone font for everything. Everywhere you see is Antigone. These backgrounds and everything, that's all Skinner, and I'll get to that in a minute. Gladius, I mentioned, it just shows enemy unit frames for arenas. Guidelines allows you to put some custom guidelines places if you want to line stuff up. Most of the time I do that just by typing in the pixel number, but guidelines helps for certain things. KG panels allows me to put panels behind stuff. I'm not actually using any right now, but I keep it around just in case. Lib shared media is really important, and that is how I get certain things across add-ons for textures and backgrounds and stuff, and it allows all of those to share their stuff with other add-ons. That's pretty important. Mapster is minimap. It allows this minimap to not be as big. That's essentially what I use it for, because I don't want it to take up the whole screen, but I do want the quest thing on it. So that's Mapster. Mogget, I've made a whole video on Mogget. Scrolling battle text is pretty obvious. It's just more details on scrolling battle text, although for damage I still use blizzards because I like to see the damage number over the head of the thing I killed. Mask is what I use to get these cool looking buttons on everything. It plugs into aura frames and to Pitbull, and in fact, let's go ahead and that's not what I want. I want to go to interface, and I'll show you what the mask thing looks like. So you can choose the add-ons that are compatible with it, and then you can choose what sort of skin they use and all the settings behind it for highlighting and the border and stuff. Or you can just do like I do and have a global one, and that just overrides everything. Shadow is the skin that I use. Unfortunately, I don't think it's on Curse. You need to go to WoW Interface to get it, but I really like it because it has this nice fade toward the center of it, which really gives the icon some depth and makes the color pop. I really like the way that that looks. Next is Master Plan, which is just a really great improvement for the Garrison Mission UI. Mogget I've talked about. Move Anything just lets you move stuff. I use it for just a couple of little things that show up here and there, and I can't even remember what they are. But it's like incidental weird stuff. But it's handy to have on just so that you can move something that some other add-on doesn't cover. MSBT options is just for mixed scrolling battle text. Omen is the threat meter I use. It shows up right down here. I like it because it's lightweight and simple. Omni CC shows numbers on cooldowns for things that I use. And I've got to find a cooldown that I have. I know I've got one in bear form. So if I go bear form and use bark skin, you'll see this is Omni CC showing a very nice looking cooldown. Aura Frames obviously has its own cooldowns, and I configure all of those to look consistent. And the colors change as they get closer to the end of the cooldown on certain ones. Pet Battle Master and Pet Leash and Pet Tracker. Pet Leash actually has nothing to do with pet battles, but Pet Battle Master and Pet Tracker are the ones that I use for pet battles. Those are what my UI is from. Disable the Pet Tracker journal if you do not want to get some really weird interface blocked errors from Blizzard stuff, so that you don't become unable to click quest items from the quest tracker or click toys from the toy box. But that's the only one that has that trouble. There's Pitbull, obviously, and there's a few Pitbull things that I normally keep unchecked, but it looks like some of them are checked right now. I don't know why. Pratt Postal is a mailbox add-on, and that just allows you to open all your mail at once. I've never had it accidentally delete things or what people are talking about, so that's pretty safe. Quartz is my cast bar, and I'll go ahead and cast reform and show you that. It's very configurable. This red part accounts for latency, and so it shows me where the latency is. So you'll see that when it hits the red part, I can start casting again and it'll be a new cast instead of having to wait till the end of the bar. So it's handy, especially if you get a moment where you've got a little extra latency. My ping's pretty fast anymore, so I haven't really had to use that very much. But back in the day on my Warlock, when I was chain shadow bolting all the time, that was a really handy thing to have. Scrap just sells garbage as soon as I go to the vendor, and you can whitelist certain things like the Brewfest Brew of the Month Club empty bottles that you can throw at people's heads. So I whitelist those. I don't like those to go away. Shared media is something that works on shared media, lib shared media. The real secret here is shared media Blizzard, and I'm going to talk about why that's so important in just a minute. That's the last thing I want to talk about. Silver Dragon is something that I use in cahoots with NPC Scan. It just is a nicer, easier to see thing that will show you when a rare comes up, and it'll also show you if anyone else in your party sees it as well. Really handy, that thing. Tidy Plates is the plate add-on that I use, and I use it pretty much default, but I use the neon theme. And I've got the threat add-on added to it. And Tidy Plates is just one of those no-brainer things. It's absolutely wonderful. Titan Panel I discussed, Tip Tack I discussed, Total RP3 I've talked about before, Weak Auras we discussed. Deadly Boss Mods, obviously. I don't know how you can live without Deadly Boss Mods. It's just kind of a must-have there. So next, it's time to talk about Skinner, /Skinner. Oh, or maybe it isn't /Skinner. Okay, well, where's Skinner? Skinner is somewhere. Skinner. Well, I don't know how to get to Skinner, it seems. But it's right there. And it's what makes everything look cool. It's what gives me this background here and makes all my borders soft like everything else I do. I swear it's just /Skinner, but it's not. Where is the Skinner thing? It's under add-ons and... Keep yelling at YouTube. I know I'll hear you if you yell loud enough at YouTube, and I'll find Skinner. I can't find Skinner. I don't even know where it went. It's gotta be somewhere, but I don't know where it is. Maybe something changed with... I know there was an update to it recently. Maybe it's got a new chat command? And I can guess it? I don't know where Skinner is, and I don't know how to open its config menu. However, Skinner's how I make all the other stuff look really cool. So, the secret to it is the lib shared media Blizzard, along with Skinner. So it gets shared media Blizzard, and that's what lets you use the talent frame backgrounds as backgrounds in Skinner. And this is the Unholy Death Knight talent frame background. See, it takes a minute to load it the first time you load a module since starting the game. And that's all that is, Unholy Death Knight background. Big secret, it's out. I wish I could use the Skinner border for my buttons, but alas, they don't play nice with mask. It did with button facade back in the day, but that's that. So that's a bunch of the add-ons that I use for my UI, and now you know everything you need to know about how to configure something very similar. If you have any more UI questions, or there's something that I missed, or you remember how to open Skinner now, then please leave a comment. Thank you for watching. I hope this was informative, and I hope it was everything you ever dreamed of for information about my UI. Okay, thanks, bye!